Hi everybody, my name is Eric and today I'm going to show you how to quickly and efficiently edit some photos on Darktable. So first you need to get Darktable installed. You can probably simply do this just by searching up Darktable on your favorite internet browser and then just installing it for Windows or Linux or whatever you want. I'll leave that as a task for yourself. However, once it's downloaded, you'll be presented in a screen like this. It works similar to Lightroom. You have like a selection software and then an editing software, which is the darkroom. But I think it's easiest if we just begin. So we'll do this by importing photos, which is in the top left, and then click Add to Library. Then now you can browse your folders. You can also add places where you think that you have folders. So of course my pictures folder has it. Then I get my photos from the by year. And then I already decided I'm going to go edit these photos today. So from the 4th of the 9th month, 2024. It doesn't typically show the image, but you can press this and get a little preview. For this, I want to do the goodbye drink after the GMM. So it was actually, I took multiple activities on this day, so I'm just going to click through until I find the photos I want to begin with. I guess somewhere in here. So I'll take this photo to start, and then I'll go all the way to the end and add these to my library. Okay, so now these are all the photos that we're working with. You can look through and make sure you don't have any extra. I also know that there's some from the next day as well, so I'll just remove those real quick. Just by clicking the first one, shift, and then delete. Now it says, do you really want to remove 120 images from Darktable without deleting files on disk? So just removing them from the editing software. You're not here removing them from your hard disk. They're still on your disk, they're just no longer in the software. Okay, so now we're presented with all these photos. As you can see, I don't know how you take photos, but I take a lot of duplicates. Out of all these photos, I'll probably only take one, maybe two. Now the task is to slim down the photos before we continue on. There's a lot of different ways of doing this, but I think the best way is with the star method. So there's also multiple ways to do this, but personally the way that I do it is I just zoom into a photo by doing control and scroll wheel, and then I see, is this photo worth editing? No. So then I just move on. This one's also not worth editing, so I move on. And then when I find a photo I like, let's say this one maybe, then I press 2. So then I give it 2 stars, and then it's worth moving on. There's another way of doing this where you can assign all of them 2 stars at the start, and then you have to do an action on each one. So here we'll now fill it by 2 stars, so we have all the photos still. And then now we'll say, okay, well, I'm either going to reject this with 1 or continue with 3. So I would reject this one. Oops, I was selected on all of them. Control Z to back up. Well, so I don't want this photo, so I'll reject it with 1, and then it goes on the next one automatically. There's also a way to do it. Not how I like to do it, though. You can also make use of multi-star functions as well. So saying 3 is good, 4 is great, 5 is amazing. However, typically I just do things I'm going to edit and things I'm not going to edit. I like the setting them all to 1 and then picking them up to 2 and then editing those, because it requires the least amount of work and you're simply picking out photos that you like. But it depends on how many photos you take as well. But for me this works. I think everyone should have their own little style though. So I typically just go through. I actually don't mind this photo. Maybe. I can always get rid of it later as well. So I just say 2. I wouldn't mind thinking about it. And then going through. This one's also sort of funny. Just them struggling. And then you just simply just go through and choose the photos you want to possibly do. Also, you don't need to make it. You just say like, what is good enough for now? So yeah, you can see that you can already see it's not a focus, or at least it's blurry. Also, another way to see is if you press Control W, then it makes it full screen, and then it will also light up the areas that are in focus. So here it's saying the bell's in focus, but sadly root's not in focus, and of course that's the subject of the photo, right? So this photo I won't take, but Control W is a nice tool to see what's in focus, and also if you need to zoom in, it's very useful. One thing you might also notice is that these two photos now look different when I press Control W when I zoom in to the full photo. That's because Darktable will add a little editing to let you see the potential of your photo. This is really the raw photo, so it's a little bit dead, I guess. It's a little bit bland. Darktable adds a little bit of color to it, so just don't worry about it, and we have ways to add that color back, of course. That's fine, and then we'll just try to find one with him in focus. It's important not to worry too much about maybe how bad the photo is. Like, let's say, yes, his face is dark right here, but you can maybe fix this in editing, depending on how much you try. If this is my only photo, I might take it. I might try to see if I can get a better photo. Yeah, this one's better, right? Both of them, better lighting. It's a little bit blurry in the hand, but it shows us an action shot at least. So I'll take that one. Oh, maybe this one even better. They're both quite nice. And then they break it, I think, right? Yeah. That's also a nice photo. So just go through and choose your photos. Again, yes, he's probably overexposed here, but actually with some tricky editing, you can probably save this. Although I don't think it's that amazing a photo. I think this is probably a better photo, right? So, also quite a nice photo here. So just go through and choose the photos you like, and once you do that, I'll do the rest of my photos. I'm at number 66 out of 158, so still a little way to go. But find a good selection of your photos, and then I'll come back to you in a second. Okay, so I've selected all my photos. I think now's also a nice time to mention, when you go select your photos, it's also a nice time to reflect through all your photos as well. So let's say here, I actually think it's an okay photo. Sandra looks a little bit weird, but it's a nice photo, except for Matthias is completely out of focus. And you can see that if you leave your cursor alone, then you get the stats. And you can see that I shot this at f1.8. So there's no way that I'm going to get everyone in focus here, right? With, I think they're probably a meter apart from each other, a meter away from the camera. You're not going to get that with f1.8, right? So it's also a nice way to go through your photos and sort of think, yeah, what went wrong, what went right, and how can I do it better? Okay, but yeah, now I don't have that many photos. I don't really care to edit that many. I guess I have 22, some from outside as well. I have a few more from a different folder, but okay, we'll leave it. So now you get to edit them, but editing can be quite a tedious process if you need to do the same thing over and over. For example, let's say all of these photos are more or less the same, right? They all have the same lighting, same colors. So there's 2 ways to do this. The first way is with styles. So your style panel might be closed, but you can open up your style panel, and then you won't have any styles. But I've now accumulated some styles of common scenarios that I have. So I just have like this basic one that just basically adds the color, so it's very similar to what Darktable does. It's just very basic, just removes the haze. I'll show it in a second. But yeah, then also I have one for darkness as well. It helps remove a lot of the noise. One for backlit conditions as well. And that sort of stuff. So I'll also make my favorite, probably the backlit, the basic, and the dark V2 available. Of course, I think you should also make your own styles at some point as well. I also wanted to mention really quickly how to import a style. So I'll make them available on OneDrive to download, but then to import it, you simply just click import, then navigate to the folder where they are. So I have it in home styles. And then here's my 3 styles, so basic, backlit, dark, and then you just simply click them, and then import. I'm not going to do that, that will screw my thing, but it's just that simple, and you can download them from the link in the description below, or it'll be on the filer if you're part of Yappy. So that's one option. That's what I normally do nowadays. I just do Control A, and then add basic V3, and that just gives me a good starting point at least. Apply. And then also make sure this is on append mode as well. And now you can see it goes from the Darktable suggestion to the darkroom, really what it will look like now. And you can see it's quite nice. It's not too much. It's pretty vibrant actually, but you can always change that as well if you want. Your other option, let me remove the history and I'll show you another option. Another option is to go to a sample photo. So let's say now we must think, what's a photo that is indicative of all the photos we have? And for me, that's probably like this one, right? This one is very similar to all the rest of the photos. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit this photo, and then we're going to copy the history to the rest. We can typically just go through some of the menus. Sharpening, we can turn this on. It won't change much. Won't do any of these. Haze removal is one of my favorites. It can really add some nice color. Whereas everything here feels a bit gray. The haze removal will add everything a bit of color, which I really like. Lens correction, you should, I think, always turn on, but unless you have a fisheye where you want the effect. Denoising is also, I think, a good idea. In Darktable, it's pretty free. It's like you really won't get much loss in features. That's always the balance, right? With denoising is how much of the fine details you're willing to give up for getting rid of noise. So here you can see if I turn it off, it's really actually quite noisy. But if I turn this on, it's actually goes pretty well. At least at strength 1. You can turn it up, and after it's done working, you might notice maybe you lost some features here. Hard to tell. It's still pretty nice. So you can choose how strong you want the denoising. We also have other denoising tools as well that I'll show in a second. But okay, just I think always turn denoising on if you're over ISO 400. It's just it's quite good, and it's doesn't, in my mind, lose you anything. These you don't have to turn on unless you really have a problem. Color balance RGB. This is where you can add the color. Now you can spend hours tinkering with these, but I really think the best way is just to right-click on this little hamburger menu, and then see some of the presets. So here you have basic colorfulness. This is very colorful. Standard is also quite nice. It's a bit less aggressive. Vibrant colors is, I think, what the other one's set at. It's also pretty aggressive, and natural skin is a bit less. So you can kind of choose. I think standard is always quite nice. You can also tone down the saturation sometimes. It's a bit too much. But you can sort of choose for yourself what you want. All these sliders do something. Hue shift, never really touch it. Global vibrance can sometimes add some nice color, but chroma, typically don't touch it. Saturation is saturation. I mean, you can like crank it up and you get an oversaturated photo. Wow. But yeah. And then brilliance will add brightness, basically. So this is a quite nice way to, if you have a dark photo, a dark and bland photo, to add some brightness, add some color, but make sure not to overdo it as well. Then the other thing I want to talk about here is color calibration. Here you can add the color of the light, so it can be quite useful. So let's say I'm going to hold shift now in the scroll wheel to change the temperature of the light, and after it's done working, you can see I've now made it more yellow. This is a vibe, like what do you want your photo to look like? Yeah, I think this is quite nice. Also, at some point it does go down to a minimum, so you can change it somehow. But especially in outdoor photos, this is something to change. But I think this looks quite nice. But color calibration, if you ever see your photo looks too yellow, go to the color calibration and change this, too yellow or too blue, to change this. I could even make it maybe a bit more yellow. I'll probably just leave it. So this is our color tab, this is our correction tab, and this is our base tab. So maybe we did it in the reverse order, but mwah. Crop, you can of course crop your images, and exposure is very useful if you find your photos too dark. Actually, I think this photo is quite well exposed. You can also see the histogram here saying, basically saying how much darkness is there. So like these are all the dark colors. So saying there's a lot of dark green, probably from this wall right here, right? There's a lot of light red, probably from, yeah, just in generally being a very bright yellow photo, or maybe the wall. And important, yeah, you don't see a big peak on the end, because that means you're overexposed. We are maybe a bit overexposed with these reflections on the lights, but, well, I don't really care. So you can lower it and I'll make it darker, which is actually quite nice. I think I might like it more than before. You can also make snapshots as well to make a comparison. Take snapshot, and then you click on one. Yeah. Okay, S is the snapshot. So right now we have snapshot on 17 and right, snapshot on 17 and this on 18, right? So then we say, do we like it with the higher brightness or the lower brightness? I think I like the lower exposure. So it's quite nice. I always forget how to do this, but yeah, this is, I think, definitely showing that, yeah, the darker one's definitely better, right? Just to add a bit more contrast, a bit less overexposed. So this is nice. So we'll just continue here. You can also just clear it and get rid of it. So that's a nice exposure level. Rotating perspective. Yeah, it's a bit off center. Remember to always look at vertical lines when you do this. However, right now we have to remember that we're just doing a sample edit. Okay, so we're going to copy all these edits to somewhere else. So if we were to do a rotating perspective, then that would also change everyone else's rotation. So we'll leave that for now, but we might come back to it. And then yeah, that should be good. Okay, so now we've made our sample edit. Maybe also demonstrate how to make a style right now. So let's say we like the style so much. In fact, this is basically more or less what my basic is. All right, haze removal. Yeah, I did the chromatic aberrations, lens correction, denoise, sharpen, color balance. But then I didn't do an exposure. But so if you like this so much, you can make it a style. So you do create, and then it will, by default, select everything. I typically do select none. And then you start from where you started. So we started at sharpen and select them all, including the module order. That's also important to do. Then set a name for it, and then sample description. So now you've made a style, and you can then now select them all and apply. And these, what's nice is that this stays over. Okay, so that's how you make a style. But we're staying with, that's our first method. Our second method is to do a sample edit and copy paste. So we'll go here, and then history stack, selective copy, again select none, and here we start from our beginning, which is sharpen, select them, okay, then select all your similar pictures, so all of these, remove the one that was your base edit, and then paste, and then you have a nice you've copy and pasted, and all these photos look I think pretty nice now, even better than I think the suggestion. So that's good. Now it's basically just a game of going through everyone and checking on it. So this one's, I think, quite nice, maybe a bit underexposed. Yeah, you see, like, it's quite dark. But I don't know how much adding exposure is nice, to be honest. It's like the fort is just a dark place, so yeah, what are you gonna do? But you could crop it or rotate it if you wanted. Then just on the next photo. Yeah, I think here maybe the colors are a bit too colorful. Maybe tone down the saturation a bit. The fort is a very saturated place already, so I think at some point you don't want to overdo it, right? We could also check the orientation. The rotated perspective. So then it comes up with a grid. If you don't get a grid, then you press this little grid line button and you can choose what you want. So you might have rule of thirds. I think for rotating, grid is much better because you have so many more lines. You can see that, like, if we follow this, it's not quite aligned. So we could probably do with like even maybe a half a degree of rotation. I always forget which way goes which. Since we've done it. So now I'm looking at the right side. Also this one as well. This seems pretty parallel. This one's not. There's also some camera warping going on. But I think this looks good, you know. I think it looks straight enough. You can go through and check the rotation of everyone. But I think at some point also, like, if it's not perfectly straight, it doesn't matter. But that's my opinion. Maybe you have a different one, which is also fine. I will probably rotate this one a bit. But as for cropping, I don't see any need to crop these photos. Especially if you're at like a higher ISO, it's dangerous to crop a photo because yeah, here you don't really see the noise, but let's say if we zoomed in on our face like this, and then once it's done working, you can already start to see some grain, some noise. And honestly, these I feel fine with. I don't really want to edit them anymore. So just continue going through each one, see if you need to do any rotation. Say this one's a bit dark, so maybe want to increase the exposure a bit. This is still a nice photo. Keep it. Timon also looks nice. Maybe cut out whatever's going on the left side. I think it's a bit distracting. So yeah, for crop it's very simple. It's in the normal tab, and then just whoop. It also casts this buffer. That's nice as well. And I think now he's not on the third, but let's see what happens. That looks kind of bad. I just don't really like this photo in general now, after I look on the edge. Okay, maybe we'll reject this photo, so you can do that by either pressing R or that little button. And yeah, we'll just keep this one. This one's fine, I like it better. All these other ones look fine. This one could be probably a bit brighter, right? Is he in focus as well? I wonder. We have enough photos of Root. We don't really need him. Also, something you just think about when you're choosing photos is, do you have a photo of everybody there? Of course, here I don't. But maybe at an activity, you want to try to have a photo of everyone that was there, if possible. So, yeah. Okay, then here we're back at photos we didn't apply anything to because they're a totally different scenario. So, so here we'll do the other method. That's much faster. So just styles, basic, apply, and you get something that's pretty okay really quickly. Yeah, it's quite nice. Once this loads. She's a bit yellow. She's a bit oversaturated, I think. It could also be the room color as well. So we'll just maybe turn down the saturation a little bit. Yeah, that makes her look much better, I think, right? From between here, here, and maybe a bit up, but probably have to do that for everyone now. This is kind of the thing. Sometimes if you just blindly apply the style, then you might have to do the same edit on all of them. It's an interesting one. I think I'll come back to these three in a second, but okay. I think these two are good enough. I'm not going to edit them. Looks kind of nice, so we'll keep it. For these three, I wanted to show a little trick that I have. So here you see, well, first we're going to turn the saturation a bit. Here you see that he's really dark, but we're also threatening to like become overexposed here. We don't want this to be just pure white, but we would like him to be brighter. Same here to an extent. It's not as bad as the previous one. Also here as well, it's really like a backlit photo, right? The background is so much brighter than she is. Like, it's really bad in this photo. So I have a little trick that I've now come up with. It's in this backlit style, but I will just manually derive it for you real quick, so you can see it. Saturation's still too high here. That's because of the shadow, right? So it's also quite nice with these saturation gradings is that it does it. You can do it globally, or you can do it by brightness. So you can say I want these shadows to be more saturated, which is nice when you, let's say, this will just change this region. So it can be nice and useful. Okay, but for our backlit problem, the key to this, in my opinion, is to go into exposure, and then we will right-click on this, on the square to make a new instance. So now we have two exposure instances. One is blank, it's zeros, and then one is everything else. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this down just a bit because I know I'm probably going to need it. And then we're going to do what we call a mask parametric mask. So you click this, and then we're going to make a mask based on the gray value. So if I press M, we can see where this mask is applying everywhere. That's not very useful. But if I press A, I go from logarithmic scale to normal scale. So I'm going to go logarithmic. And I slide the slider, then you see now I'm only doing on the darkest regions, right? So this is perfect. I want to boost the exposure on the dark regions, but leave it the same on the bright regions. Now you also want to add a little bit of like gradient for this. You don't want it to be so black and white. So now you can see that it's really going to do his shirt, it'll do his face a decent bit, maybe the cup also a little bit, and Lucas in the background. Yeah, so this is done. Also a good tip as well is to add just a little bit of radius. Not too much, but it helps take away some sharp edges. But you can also remove it. Sometimes you need it. It's kind of case by case. Let's now turn up the exposure here a bit. Remove the mask. Yeah, you can see it's looking better. Oops, I think I went to the wrong one. So yeah, we're on our this one, and yeah, now you can see how much you want to increase the exposure by. And you can see that we're not really increasing the exposure of the background, but we have now gone up by almost a whole EV. So let's say we turn this off, turn our exposure off. You can see how dark it becomes. And let's say if we would have increased this by almost an EV, we've lost this. Like, yes, he looks great now, but at what cost? So that's it's pretty nice. So this is how I do my backlit photos. I think it turns out really well, right? He's now nicely looking good, and also the background is okay. The background's just sort of always been bright, but we can also lower the background, or lower everything, and then increase him some more. So if we want to try to get more of Helix, not too much. And then we'll need to increase him a bit more as well. Well, I think this is good. You can play with this more, but this is the basic idea, is that you create a filter. Also, exactly the levels of this filter really depend on the photo sometimes. And we'll do the same thing for here as well, but likely you'll have completely different numbers here. So I have this as a style, the backlit style. Backlit, append, apply, and now it's at least here. So you see here, but once again, press A to go to logarithmic mode. It will help, and then we can look at our map. I see the map's pretty good. Maybe it could be a bit broader. Don't need it so sharp. And yeah, so we can go like before, after, see what we think. It helps a bit. It's hard to say like what's the best exposure. I think this is probably actually a bit too high, but some like this is, I think, nice. And then lastly, for this last photo, I think this is now considered overexposed, right? So everywhere. So if it's everywhere, then we'll just do the normal one without the mask. I think this is nice enough. You know, it doesn't also need to be perfect, so I think this is good enough. Okay, and then we have our photos. In the end, we only have 20, but I think there are 20 photos we can be quite proud of, right? So, and also the activity wasn't that long. The activity was like 2 hours long. So now we do Control A, or select all of them somehow, and then export. So this will put it in the folder that you started from. So I started from my day folder. Then it says Darktable export. Then for the file quality, I think this JPEG 8-bit 95 is pretty good. You can probably lower it to like 90 as well if you want, but 95 is nice if you have nice quality photos. And then just leave these. 0 by 0 means it will take the photo, so also just leave that. And then export. So now it's exporting. I do want to show one more thing, and that's for very dark photos. So I will find a very dark photo real quick. So this is a very dark photo. Obviously, it was nighttime, and we're taking mostly of the sky. You can see already the noise from very far away, but very closely it's terrible, right? Because it's a dark color. So even if we put on the, well, let's first like add at least the style of basic. We'll apply that. And now it's quite nice. It was colored lighting, so of course, and this also had the denoise as well on it. And you can see the denoise does do pretty well, but it still has these black and white speckles. Of course, this is really unfair. We're on like zooming in on black, but I'd like to try to get it a bit better. So there is a way. I do have a preset for it. It's called Dark V2. So I'll apply it, and then we'll see what it looks like. And here you still see a little bit of the speckles when it's done loading, but it's not as bad. We can take a snapshot and once it's done thinking. So now you can see, yeah, this is the snapshot we had, and this is the what we have now. So it does quite a good job. It does lose some detail, right? We can go to her face as well and see what that looks like. It will lose some detail. You always will lose some detail. But given the effects, I think it's still quite nice. And so I do recommend, if you have very dark photos, let's say you're either shooting at night or shooting in a club or something, then this is it. And I will mention quickly what it is if you're curious. It's these contrast equalizers. I don't know why there's two. I'm not going to worry about it. But basically what these do is they really do some magic. I got this online from somewhere. But it's these little things. Let's say if you want to make it stronger, you can bring this up and it will make it even stronger, but you'll lose detail then for sure, which is not something you want, so we'll just go back. And same with this first one. Although now I think it's backwards, right? Now it's, you gotta drag it down. So, and then if you want to change, but this is the idea, is that you have these little areas under the curve and they do something. I don't know. I just sort of got it. You can also increase the strength this way as well. This mixes basically the strength. If it's stronger or weaker, yeah. So this is a really nice way if you have dark things. So I'll also make this style available, and it can be really useful for cleaning up some very noisy photos. Oh, yeah, you can see it's pretty okay here. You can increase the strength as well if you want. I think you have to always trade off what detail am I losing elsewhere, you know. I think she still looks pretty good, but yeah, it's borderline. So that's also something I want to show. So I'll make sure that the basic, the dark, and the backlit packages are exported for you to have. So if you ever want it, you can just take these and apply them. Well, I hope that makes it clear. So just to recap, we talked about how to add things to libraries, and then how to rate them with the star system, whether you use the 1, 2, 3 method or whatever, and then how to mass edit them, whether you're editing one of them and then copy pasting the history stack with the selective copy, or if you're using styles and applying styles. And then we also quickly went through some of them and did some fine tuning with the rotating, and then I also showed you how to do some darkness as well. I hope this is clear for you guys, and I hope it helps your editing journey. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Drop something in the comments, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.